Here's Looking at You is a rather delightful, slightly emotional, Martin-focused episode of Frasier. This is the fifth episode that aired originally in October 1993, directed by Andy Ackerman. And in this one, Frasier receives a phone call from a caller who's talking about his mother. And it starts to get Frasier thinking about the fact that Martin just spends most of his time watching television, not really doing anything, certainly not interacting with people. So he decides to buy him a telescope. And Martin uses this telescope, and with some encouragement from Frasier, he decides to use it to have a look at the people in the building across the road, or across the street. And in doing so, he stumbles upon this other person who's using a telescope for the very same reason. And we learn that this person is called Irene, and they exchange some messages written on paper. Frasier kind of prompts Martin to take the relationship to another level, but Martin's that kind of apprehensive about this. And we learn more about this as the episode goes along. And I really enjoy this episode a lot. It's a beautiful look at Martin's character and who he is and how he feels about certain things, and I will discuss that in more detail in a moment. And I thought it was really sweet and definitely an episode that I will always enjoy watching. Most of it is set inside the Crane residence, which seems obvious, but some episodes are actually more heavily set at KACL or in Cafe Nervosa. The majority of this is inside the one room, really, but it works very well. It doesn't feel like they're not using the space well enough or anything. I think it flowed quite nicely. I'll talk a little bit now in more detail about the main narrative and also some things that I found particularly funny or delightful. And I guess the first thing I want to mention is one of the most moving parts of the whole episode, and maybe one of the most moving parts of any episode of Frasier, and that's when Daphne gave her speech to Martin about how he doesn't need to feel self-conscious about his cane because he's got all these really great qualities, and Irene is very unlikely to just look at this cane and suddenly be turned off. And I think it's very moving, and I kind of like the fact that Martin never actually openly admitted that that was what the problem was. But it was definitely something we could infer, and I thought that that was very moving and very effectively done. Of course, there were various entertaining aspects as well. I think G-Speak was absolutely fantastic, and Kathleen Noone as Aunt Patrice, I don't know how much she had to practice G-Speak, but it was fabulous. It sounded incredible. It seems like it's something that would be very difficult, and I was very, very impressed by that. And also, Niles's anecdote about the wine club, rather enjoyed that as well. There were a lot of small things here and there that I found really entertaining, but generally it was an all-round fabulous episode, very moving, very emotive, but also, as Frasier often pretty much always is, very funny and very entertaining. I don't think Here's Looking at You is one of my all-time favourite episodes, but certainly it's fabulous. Really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it's one that I'll always be happy to watch.